Okay, this is the next part of the recording, this time looking at the signs. Beginning as usual with the historicis. These mostly see the seals and trumpets earlier as being external events that affected the church, i.e. political events that happened, be they crazy emperors, famine, invasions from outside, so external things affecting the church. But the signs for the historicis, they see them as a parallel section to the seals and the trumpets. But this time it's looking at the internal events that affect the church. So less of the political outside, but more of the inside stuff affecting the church directly. But like I said, happening at the same time as the seals and the trumpets. The woman is the visible church, the whole church, that is persecuted by the Roman emperors. The male child is the true church within her, in her. You have this theme continually through the historicis view, the idea of the church and the true church. Those who truly follow Jesus as opposed to those who follow the traditions of men, the wider body. In their system, of course, the true church will leave the visible church in the Reformation. If you like, the male child is the future of the church. The true church and its martyrs are vindicated when Constantine becomes the emperor and forbids persecution of Christians. The war in heaven in these signs is often seen as the brief reign of Julian the Apostate. He was an emperor who only reigned for 2 or 3 years, but he attempted to reverse what Constantine had done and take the empire back into paganism away from Christianity. He failed to do this, the church won. But this, for the historicis, is the last time, if you like, the dragon physically attacks the church from the outside, realizing that he has failed to do this through the emperors, through persecution, or attempt to return to paganism. It's almost like the historicists believe the dragon tries a new tactic, and the beasts are his new strategy. So the external satanic attack of earlier now becomes an internal attack in these signs. So for the historicists, the beasts represent the papal system. They are the dragon's attempt to take over the church and to persecute the true church within it. So the beasts are different aspects of this system which persecute the true church. Continuing on, so if you like, the dragon has just changed tactics. First he tried to destroy through the political way, through the emperors, through the Roman Empire, and those systems. Now he does it within the church through the papal system. The mark of the beast is often seen as being Latin itself, something connection with Latin. Interestingly, one of the ways the historicists say this is they look at what the Pope used to have on his mitre, on his crown. He doesn't have this anymore, but in centuries past, he had a title on his crown which said Vicarius Filii Dei, which means Vicar of the Son of God. And the numerical value of Vicarius Filii Dei is 666. So for them, they think this is another sign of the mark of the beast being associated, the beast itself being the papacy. The preterists, however, who at this point will split into two. At this point, in a center, you will now have those who continue to focus on Jerusalem. So the signs are talking about Jerusalem. But then there are those who will now focus on Rome. So some preterists see, like I said, the destruction of the first 2 great persecutors of the church, the Jewish institutions and then the Roman ones. So the woman is often seen as Israel, who gives birth to the church, which is the child. Some say that the woman being looked after in the wilderness is another reference to the church that fled Jerusalem during the Jewish revolt, but was afterwards attacked by the devil. The woman and the child and the war in heaven are seen as parallel, with the war taking place actually at the same time as the cross and the resurrection. The first beast is Rome, or Nero himself, which persecutes the church during this time period, the time of the fire of Rome. The second beast could be emperor worship, or the emperor cult, especially amongst the group who now see the focus on Rome. Or those who say, no, it's still about Jerusalem, it would be Roman power within Jerusalem, the Roman procurator, or maybe even false Jewish prophets. For them, the mark of the beast represents Nero himself. If you simplify Nero's name, because like most Roman emperors, he had a long name, many names, but if you simplify his name to Nero Caesar, so his name and his family name, or his name and, not his family name, sorry, his name and the name he took from Caesar, as all emperors took Caesar's name as a title. So Nero Caesar. The Aramaic equivalent is Neron Kaiser, which adds up to 666. So they see this as a code, talking about Nero without actually mentioning his name, which makes sense, because at the time he was busy killing Christians. So you don't want to annoy him anymore by writing a book about him. But 666 represents him, so the beast would be Nero. For the futurists, the first part you have here is kind of like a flashback to the time period of the writing of the book, of the letter, and before, not to the end times. So the child here is Jesus himself being born. The woman would then be Israel, which the Messiah came out of, or maybe even perhaps Mary. But the child is definitely Jesus. But the fleeing into the wilderness then goes back to the time period of the rest of the book for the futurists, i.e. the future. Especially those who would see the woman being Israel, representing faithful Israel that comes back to God during the tribulation. So this looking after in the wilderness is a symbol of God protecting Israel that returns to him during the tribulation. Because of this faithfulness, they are persecuted by the Antichrist and forced to flee into the wilderness. The first beast is a political world leader at this time, linked to the fourth beast of Daniel and possibly the head of a revived Roman Empire. This is usually identified, of course, to be the Antichrist, who comes to power during the tribulation. Again, if you remember, you have this parallel section when it comes to futurists. So in this case, the beast in the signs is happening at the same time as the seals being opened in the first part of the book. So the beast comes out of the sea and establishes his kingdom in the seals. So it's a parallel section. The second beast is his religious counterpart, the false prophet, who forces the world to worship the first beast, and therefore the dragon through him. The mark of the beast could be many things in this system. It could be an actual physical mark, like a tattoo, for example. Some, as technology is developed, some have said maybe it's some kind of technological thing, like an implanted microchip. Or some see it more as a symbol, again identifying the beast with a connection to Rome. The Greek word Latinos, which means Latin-speaking man, adds up to 666. So it could be the idea that the center of the beast's power is Rome. The center of the Antichrist kingdom in some way has something to do with Rome in Latin. Though some futurists look at this in the same way as the idealists. For idealists, this represents, the sign period again represents the entire church age. So this is a parallel section to the seals and the trumpets and so on. So it begins with the woman giving birth to the child who is Jesus. And at the same time that the woman is giving birth to Jesus, you have the stars falling, and in the next paragraph you have the war in heaven. So these are seen as parallel paragraphs. So 1 to 6 is seen as Christ's ministry on earth, 12:1 to 6, and the beginning of the church. And 12:7 to 12 is seen as a parallel passage, what's happening in heaven. So in this idea, Satan's fall from heaven, or Satan's rebellion, or the war that threw him down between Michael and the dragon, happens at the same time as Jesus' ministry. So it's talking about the defeat of Satan through Jesus. So what Jesus was doing in earth is parallel, is mirrored in heaven with the Satan being thrown down, the dragon being thrown out. And then the dragon then attacks the church in revenge. So the dragon is defeated and then attacks the rest of the followers of the one who defeated him, Christ. Interesting though, the idea is he persecutes the church not because he is stronger than the church, but persecuted the church because they are a symbol of his defeat. The beast then, the first beast, would be any political system that Satan then used. The dragon falls and then uses things to attack the church. So any political power that Satan then uses to attack the church is the first beast. In John's time, of course, the picture is of Rome. But it applies to all beasts, as I said before. North Korea, Nazi Germany, Soviet Empire, and so on. The second beast, the beast described, although it's mostly identified with the fourth beast of Daniel, it's not exactly the same. And it actually has elements of all of the beasts described in Daniel. So they would say it's a picture of all evil empires in that sense. The second beast is any religious, philosophical, or ideological system which backs up the power of the first beast, and so therefore persecutes the church. Again written in terms of its current beast, emperor worship, though it equally applies to systems such as National Socialism, communism, and so on. The mark of the beast, for the idealist, is more symbolic than a literal mark. It's a contrast to the seal, which is seen in chapter 7 and in the signs of the righteous. So the seal of the righteous is the name of the Lamb, God and the Lamb. Though the seal of the unrighteous is 666. So it's a contrast idea. 666 for them is a picture of falling short of divine completion. If 7 is the number of completion, then divine completion would be 777. Whereas 666 falls short every single time of that. So it's a symbol of humanity's imperfection, incompletion, its fallenness. There are many, many ideas, as I've shown you a few there, of what the number of the beast could be. If you ever want to spend an amusing few hours, just type number of the beast into Google and see what comes up. There's loads and loads of ideas out there. I've shown you some of them, but here's how some of them actually work. One of them is this connection to Latin. So the idea that in Greek, Latinos means the Latin-speaking man. And if you see Lateinos is 31, 305, 10, 50, 70, and 200. So if you add up that word, it comes to 666. I mentioned Vicarius Filii Dei, Vicar of the Son of God. This shows you how this breaks down. Just to point out that U and V are interchangeable. in Latin. So the U in vicarious is the same as V, so it's 5. And so that also adds up to 666, as you can see. This is how Nero Caesar's name in Aramaic comes up to 666. And how Greek, Muhammad in Greek, Meamatis, I'm not very good in pronunciation, so it probably sounds something completely different. But anyway, that adds up to 666 as well. That's just a couple of examples. Like I said, just Google it sometime, and there are loads of different examples of how this works out. Interestingly, though, there is an added element to this, because some of the most earliest manuscripts of Revelation actually doesn't have 666. Instead, it has 616. So if that's the real number and not 66, it really throws all of these theories out and we have to start again. But there's debate about that. Okay, before I move on from the signs, I want to take a look at them again. Because if you remember back to and when we looked at structure, one of the ways of looking at Revelations is possible chiasm. And according to that structure, both chiasms actually, the signs would be the center of this book. So what then does the center of this book tell us about Revelation, the center of this chiasm? What can it teach us? So let's do a little more detail on this section. 12:1 to 12. Section begins with the woman giving birth to the child and the dragon in heaven. The ruling child is taken up to God in his throne. The woman flees into the wilderness. At the same time as this, we have a war in heaven between the dragon and Michael, and the dragon and his followers are thrown down to earth. Then, the dragon, from 13 to 17, the dragon after his defeat attacks and persecutes the woman, but she is protected from his attack. From then on, the dragon makes war on the woman's other offspring, which are identified as followers of Jesus. 13:1 to 10. The war is continued by a beast from the sea, who serves the dragon and inspires worship from the people of the world. This beast blasphemes against God and makes war upon the saints. All who do not serve the Lamb worship and are captivated by this beast. 13:11 to 18. This story is told once again, but this time focusing on a second beast helping the first beast. This beast appears like a lamb but speaks like a dragon. It performs miraculous signs and deceives the people of the earth. His power both deceives and kills those who refuse to be deceived. He also marks those who he deceives and who worship the first beast with the number of the beast. 14:1 to 5. The focus then shifts again to the Lamb. And with him are the 144,000 who are also marked. But they are marked with the Father and with the Lamb's name. These are the redeemed, and they worship God. They are identified as the first fruits from among men, first fruits to God and the Lamb. 14:6 to 12 is then 3 declarations given by 3 separate angels. The first angel declares the gospel, and that the hour of judgment has come, so worship God. The second angel declares that Babylon, the city that has seduced the nations, has fallen. The third angel declares judgment upon those who has worshipped the beast and received his mark. 14:13, then the voice says, "Blessed are those who die from the Lord from now on, for they will rest from their labor." Then 14 to 20, you get the judgment that was declared actually takes place. 2 angels take sickles and harvest the earth. The harvest is thrown into the great winepress of the wrath of God, and the harvest is watched over by one like the Son of Man, who also has a sickle in his hand. 15:1 to 4. This section ends with the final sign, 7 angels ready to pour out the last 7 plagues to complete the wrath of God. Also, you have this picture of a sea of glass mingled with fire, and standing beside it are those who had victory over the beast. This multitude worship God by singing the song of Moses and the song of the Lamb. So why is this at the heart of the book? What is this saying? For a start, I think it's effectively telling the entire story, again, in one little section. Beginning with Jesus' life, his ascent to heaven, the defeat of Satan. Jesus is victorious over Satan. This contrast is huge. Jesus ascends, and at the same time, Satan is thrown down. In this context, the war that Satan then unleashes on the church, the persecution, the tribulation that the book as a whole focuses on, is a desperate act of revenge from a defeated foe. It's very clear here who has the authority and who doesn't. The beasts are Satan's agents of revenge. They inspire terror and worship, and they persecuted the church. Of course, depending on your overall view of Revelation, the identity of these beasts will change. For the historicists, they are the corrupted church persecuting the true church. For the preterists, they are like the spirit of Babylon. They are the city against God, either Jerusalem or Rome or both. For the futurists, they are the future evil kingdom set up against God, or characters from within that kingdom. For the idealists, they are the spirit behind all enemies of the church in any age. But I don't think the different identities of the beasts change much about what this section is talking about. Because whoever they are the agents of revenge of Satan, whose job it is to persecute the church and seduce the world away from God. They are Satan's revenge, if you like. Which brings us, I think, on to the major point, the central point of this section and the book as a whole, the idea of worship and who do you worship. Both beasts in this story are connected to worship, and through them the worship of Satan, the dragon. We have a graphic picture in this section of the multitudes of earth worshipping the first beast and being physically marked because of it. And then we have another contrast. Another group marked by their worship, this 144,000, the redeemed, the first fruits worshipping the Lamb. And they are marked with the Father's name and the Lamb's name on their forehead. They bear the name of God. I think perhaps the heart of this book, is this challenge. Which group do you want to be in? How do you want your worship to mark you? Will the number of the beast, or the name of the Father and the Lamb? For the original readers of this book, these 7 churches going through this persecution, whichever time element it's in, the temptation for them is to side with the beasts and their worshippers. The temptation is to give in to persecution, to be a part of the world that is persecuting them, to be a part of the world that we looked at in the 7 churches, to let the beasts mark them so that life can be easier. And of course, for any reader after that century, any reader of Revelation who is going through similar persecution, the temptation and the challenge is also the same. The temptation would be to give in to these beasts, to give in to the challenge, to become a part of the world system, to make life easier. So here at the heart of this book we have this choice. But I like the way the author, that John does not just leave us with the challenge, he clearly shows what the results of both choices will be. You don't have to wait to the end of the book to realize what will happen depending on who you choose. It's here right in the middle. The angels declare the victory of the gospel and the defeat of Satan's kingdom here in the middle of the book. And the judgment falls on those who follow the beast here in the middle of the book. And this little small line of reassurance, it's okay if this persecution kills you. You will find rest. You will be blessed. You will be vindicated. The consequences then fall on those who choose the beast. They are harvested from the earth. Often when we think of the harvest of the earth, it's in a very positive way. We quote Jesus that says, the fields are white unto harvest, but the laborers are few. But this harvest is very different. This harvest is negative. You do not want to be harvested by Jesus in this section, because that is judgment. So the unwritten question here is, why would you? These are the consequences of giving in. These are the consequences of worshipping the beast and becoming part of the easy way. So why would you do it if this would be your fate? Why choose the winepress when instead you can choose to be a part of this multitude worshipping the Lamb? A multitude that has overcome the beast, that has defeated the beast with their faith. They did not give in, they did not worship. They stand by a sea of glass mingled with fire. They stand by the sea, this evil, this chaos, this suffering, but it's frozen in place in their presence. Not just frozen in the presence of God like we looked at before, but now frozen in place in the presence of the worshipping church. And I think this is a part of the great challenge, the great encouragement, the great comfort, building up and consolation the author is intending through this in prophecy. This is who the church can choose to be. Through Christ it can overcome all of its enemies. Regardless of your view, through Christ these saints overcame the beast, and evil was frozen in its presence. So the church through Christ can persevere. It can live through persecution. It can refuse the seduction of evil. It can worship the Lamb instead of the beast. It can be victorious. Evil can be frozen in the presence of the worshipping, overcoming church. Why would you worship anything else? Why would you give in if that's what you could